Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday morning on TLDChat. How's everybody doing? Looks like we're filling up the house this morning. Welcome to TLDChat, the Training, Learning, and Development Chat. I'm back from being away for quite some time. I'm doing great, Kara. How are you? Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Last week was a full week, right? Man, we had boatloads of guests. So definitely a good time. I was at the Future Learning 2020 conference in Santa Clara, California last week, which was fantastic. And we can talk more about that later. But before we get started on our topic today, which, by the way, I wanted to talk about subject matter experts. It's a topic we have discussed in the past, but I don't think we've circled back around to it in a while. So I figured since this is one of those rare days that we don't have a guest, that it would be fun for us to revive that, because I think it is a very important topic when we talk about the new future of learning and development and training and cultures of learning, that the subject matter expert plays an incredibly key role in that. So it's important that we have that conversation, and that's kind of something I figured I would be able to talk about. And oh yes, I did catch Game of Thrones last night, Urbie, and maybe we might end up going on a slight tangent and discuss that today. If we have any GOT fans in the house. Yes, Rails. Sorry, Kara. Welcome to TLDChat, everybody. Don't forget, if you want to get some extra bonus prizes and some extra value out of what we do here at TLDC, become a member. Help us out and help yourself get more connected and more value out of the fantastic organization and group of professionals that is TLDC. We also have the event coming up in January 29th and 30th in Phoenix, Arizona, where we will all just be gathering as a group of TLD chatters, and we're going to have some speakers and all that kind of good stuff. But it's going to be different. We're planning a very, very unique experience, just like we did in 2016. The event that launched all of this. And so we are looking forward to making that happen again for everybody in the Phoenix area in January, which is beautiful, by the way. Super hot here now, but won't be in January. So that's all good. And so as we get into this morning, I forgot to even click that. So hit us up at TLDC18, TLDC18.com, and get registered for the event. If you want to get yourself a discount, you can become a member. There's actually the Become a Member link right on this platform that we use, Crowdcast, for this daily stream. So you can also click that button as well. There are many ways to get involved with TLDC, and I would encourage you to do so and tell all of your friends about what we do here every day. It's just like a hallway conversation at a great big event, except we do it every single day, and some days we have guests, and we talk about making you better at the work that you do in training, learning, and development, and that you do not have to have the title. You do not have to be in the training department to be doing and developing training, and you do not have to be an L&D professional to be building solutions and being a part of the learning and process. I say all the time that in 21st century learning environments, everybody, all of your employees are both student and teacher. So to take advantage of that, it's important that we talk about the subject matter experts. And what does that mean? There are those people in your employee base that will take on this role naturally, right? If you look at a lot of social media usage reports, it's only a very small amount of people who actually take advantage of social media as creators, right? And so the same holds true, we're finding, in the enterprise. And so A lot of that same data in the social media world actually does map to the enterprise. And those are normally your subject matter experts. Sometimes they aren't. At the very least, they can be considered influencers. But in order to find out who are your champions, who's going to be helping you, spread the word about, learning, these are the people that we rely on as professionals to be instructors, to share with us their documentation and whatnot. It's those subject matter experts. So anyways, we'll talk a lot more about that, to be sure. And I'll be looking to you in the chat today. So as you're thinking about subject matter experts today, just let me know if you are, let me know ahead of time, right? Like normally we do an introduction, and if I see a bunch of new faces in the chat, I say, introduce yourself, let people know who you are and what you do and where you're from and all that good stuff. Please do that, but also add whether or not you are currently in the situation where you can go live on video. And just so I kind of know who to reach out to and who to send the video invitation to extend the conversation a little bit. So if you could just drop that into the chat, that would be fantastic. Would appreciate it. So I certainly don't want to just go into too long of a monologue. So question number 1, how many of you, and you can just say, maybe I should do like a poll or something. I haven't quite thought this through that far, but how many of you are currently on a project working with a subject matter expert, or know you need to rely on somebody else for the content? Just like respond in the chat and just put like me, or raises a hand or something like that. Cheryl, fantastic. Zolt, yes, there always is, right? Yep, Tom's working with one. Well, Tom, we know you're working with like 100 of them. Maybe this would be a fantastic time for us to circle back around and get a little bit more value from your use case. And let's talk specifically maybe SMEs, subject matter experts, in your use case. I hadn't even thought of that until just seeing your comment there. So, oh, not today. Okay. Put some pants on and we'll be fine. That's funny. But yeah, so 200 projects, clinician paid with 200 SMEs. Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty epic, that's a large collection of subject matter experts. So I'd be curious how you are dealing with that, Urbie. That would be an interesting one. If you are, if you're able to jump into the video, Urbie, I'm going to go ahead and send you an invite on the screen. I don't know if you've got where you're currently at. If you've got some bandwidth to jump on and talk us through it, that'd be great. Or you can just reject. That's fine. Like I said, rules of engagement here on TLDChat. If you see an invitation to jump on screen on video, you can absolutely feel free to decline it, and do not feel bad about that. Sometimes I just click that button just to see if somebody wants to jump in. If you're not prepared or not wanting to go on, then that is absolutely okay as well. So don't sweat that at all. It's all good. Hey, Urbie, how's it going?
It's going.
It sounds like it's going times 200. What's up with that?
So I work with a large federal agency. That's what I work with now. Doing project management for webinars, mostly for clinician PD, professional development. And
okay.
It's mostly project management, something I admittedly suck at. Yeah, so it's not so much design, but it's coordinating a whole bunch of things to happen all at the same time.
Yep. So let me just stop you right there, and let me clarify a little bit. So you're creating training on project management to teach these 200 clinicians how to do.
Oh, no. So let me tell you about one of the projects I have right now. So the VA, the Veterans Administration, they have this thing called the National Golden Veterans Game. So that's for veterans, that have, some, some kind of problem, health-related problem. And so I did a webinar the other day on pickleball. Familiar with pickleball. And so a doctor would come to me, a clinician would come to me and say, hey, I have this really cool content. Help me package it and produce it so that we can get the people who judge the events, the people who, host the events and so on, get them together. And then we can, provide some PD. It's also too about continuous education units, because again, these different, different people, they need to have X amount of hours of PD training over a year. And so then I help them tell a compelling story, present the information so that it makes sense to the audience, and keep it interactive and so on. And and then so I have another 199 or so projects like that.
Wow. So what types of topics are they again? So like if you had is each one a course?
Pardon me?
Is each one an individual course you're saying, or? Yeah. Okay. So give me one example of like a good topic that maybe one you're working on right now.
I just finished a series where it was about don't tell me. Ceasing tobacco. It's a mental health thing. And so it was providing evidence that these are the things that kind of work and don't work, and why they don't work, and things that you can try, with the people that you support.
Fantastic. So it's the use of tobacco?
No, how to get people to, I guess, break the habit.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, so if somebody comes in to the VA and that's one of their issues, then how to deal with that, or or just to better understand it?
Yeah, but I was kind of more into the pickleball. You can have a lot more fun with pickleball.
So we've got a few people who don't know what pickleball is, including myself. So give us a quick background on what pickleball is.
Yeah, well, I gather I don't know that much about it actually, because it's all about producing and not so much learning from them. At least me and my behind the curtains role. But I understand that it was created by a congressman a number of years ago, and where he got some of the other congressmen, I guess, out on the back porch or something, and they played baseball kind of, except with really basic materials. I think the actual baseball is a wiffle ball.
Okay.
With a little plastic ball with the holes in them.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they use for a bat. And they make bases, and they run around. Yeah, I have a sister in Lake Arrowhead, California. She's 70. She plays pickleball. She's a pretty avid fan. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds as Zolt says we need some training course on what pickleball is and how to pull that together.
Yep. Yeah, if I can ever scrape up the cash to get storyline, maybe I'll make an e-learning course.
That's awesome. All right, so you're subject matter experts then. So you're going to have to go and talk to somebody that's an expert on the tobacco issue. So is there one person that's currently identified, or are there multiple ones, or is there a place that you go to get that kind of information and documentation to create the course? How are you working on that?
It's kind of situational, actually. The client who comes to us, sometimes there's the internal experts, sometimes there's external. We do a lot of work with universities. I try to say academia, but that doesn't come out all the time.
That's all right. Yeah. So and so you go to the universities to get the.
They tend to have these partnerships and stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, but I'll tell you, design thinking plays a big part of it. That's actually the piece that I'm best at, is getting people to kind of put themselves in the position that we're here to help. Here's the information, because a lot of the stuff that I saw at other places before I joined the organization I'm with now, the stuff is really technical, and it's not compelling or vital. I mean, think in some respects, I mean, think about the last time, you learned something informally. How can you make a formal learning experience informal to the point where, your peers instead of the sage on the stage kind of thing. And so I think that really starts with empathy. And so you ask the question, where does it hurt? And let's go after that first. Where if you're an instructional designer, wearing that hat, it's about, show me where the gap is. Show me the metrics that identify this is the gap. So
yeah.
where would you rather work from?
Right. And so so how we get our work done in working with SMEs is changing in exactly that way, right? And a lot of what we do, a lot of that informal learning is being supported by platforms for those folks that need the knowledge to connect directly with the team members that have the knowledge or the extra experience, right? So do you experience that at all? I mean, it sounds like from that design, perspective, it sounds like there are probably a lot of experienced folks that could be subject matter experts, but maybe aren't identified as subject matter experts.
Yeah, well, that's why I say it's sort of situational. Where does the knowledge reside, and how do you find them? I did some work with a law enforcement agency a couple years ago, and interviewing the learners and stuff. The entry level law enforcement people. You ask them. Think about an on your feet or on the ground. Level 1. Was the room okay? Except the room isn't a classroom. You're out in the field. There's cactus, there's desert, there's rattlesnakes coming across your path. That's where they should be learning. Okay, and then those are the kind of comments. Gosh, you know what? It didn't seem real enough. We're supposed to make these decisions, on stuff, and we don't know what that feels like. Okay, and so let's buy some time at a railroad yard. Let's do the training there with trains going by. That way they can, the law enforcement people can do their thing.
Right.
That didn't come from a SME. That came from a trainee who'd been with the organization 2 or 3 weeks.
Gotcha. And so did that happen?
Yeah, actually, they bought some railroad cars and set aside some land on the facility, and yeah.
That's fantastic. See, and that it always takes somebody that's on the ground, right? The boots on the ground, so to speak, the frontline people that you're trying to train, for them to come up with what should seem like a fairly decent idea. But I'm assuming that, because I would consider that sort of like along the lines of a simulation, and that can get expensive, right? To actual buy the real thing.
Yeah. There's a funny thing. So it's going on 4 years or so that I started that project. And so I was contracting at the time, and I remember telling my wife, Diana, hey, I need to go over to Walmart. I need to get some supplies, for this project. She says, what are you doing buying instructional design stuff at Walmart? I had to buy a Coleman tent, one of those kind with the pipes for the, on the outside. You put it up in 30 seconds or something, or a minute.
Yep.
Because I had to go follow these people, the SMEs, out in the New Mexico desert. If you look at my tweets from around that time, about 4 years ago, you'll see a lot of time in the field. Yeah,
in the actual field, right? Or
so I'm doing observations in the snow. You see me in my little windbreaker because I've been thrown together really fast. Oh, it was awful.
Oh my gosh! But that's pretty cool stuff, though. I mean, that's real. That's the real work that people should be doing. When we say you need to get connected with the business, that's part of it. In that case, the business is not white collar, right? Since you're having to be outdoors and whatnot, but it's the same idea, right? You can't really gain empathy, and you can't really understand what it is you're training until you sort of live it for a while. Let me scroll back real quick. Zolt has a fantastic statement here about what a SME is, and he says an SME is the person who doesn't know that they are an SME until they get to a kickoff meeting or call, and they're the ones that ask, can someone tell me what I'm doing here? And it's so real. That wouldn't be so funny if it wasn't so absolutely the real deal. So very, very funny. So so you getting connected with those folks, would there or could there be an easier way So Toddy makes a great point too, right? A SME can also be a learner. I got a lot of information for the design of my robotics training from my user base, which is exactly right, which is my point that I always make, in that everybody is becoming both learner and teacher, right? Both student and instructor. And everybody has something that they can share. And so, us finding those people, right? Having that discovery process where you can find out who the people are that have the knowledge and get them connected with the people who need the knowledge. That seems to be an incredibly powerful thing that we can do as learning professionals, even before we get to the point of creating experiences and solutions and whatnot, right?
Boy, I wish I'd known you. You know what? I did know you actually in 2013. Yeah, you also see me tweet a lot about these things called ed camps.
Yeah.
So almost exclusively, except for the occasional ATD conference or DevLearn conference, all of my PD has come shoulder to shoulder with teachers, through these ed camps. Yeah, so on Saturdays, that's typically when they're held. You get teachers, 30, 40 to several hundred get together in a room, no agenda. It's an unconference. On the one hand, what do the people in the room know? On the other hand, what do people in the room need to know? They get together, have the conversations, tweet like crazy, archive it, in a variety of formats.
Yeah.
Share. I mean, it's just, so I try to make my training, the stuff that I develop, feel like that. That's why if you hear me going on a lot on Twitter, I'm all the time talking about how I want to buy Storyline, because if you're an e-learning developer, that's what you use. Except I don't use it, because it's hard to get that kind of knowledge integration in a package. And there's so many free tools out there now. Why bother?
Right. Well, it's nice. I mean, it is. So a lot of what we do here on TLDChat is what we're talking about, right? We have a lot of subject matter experts and people who are just learning and maybe new to the industry, all coming together and sharing our experiences. The new folks are maybe asking different questions that we need to be considering, right? And the more experienced folks are learning about, things that maybe we've forgotten or taken for granted. Right? It's a constant cycle, especially with businesses changing so fast, right? And technology changing, and so much, I hate to even use the word, but so much disruption happening in every industry that it feels like we can't rely on our formal processes anymore for creating instruction and teaching, that we have to be a little bit more flexible and accepting of utilizing subject matter experts and figuring out different ways of finding them, exposing them, and giving them the platform to speak and to share their knowledge, right? I mean, to me, that seems like a much bigger win overall than creating courses. At the end of the day, as they say. Right? I mean, so we're talking about, it's not like we need to do this same thing. Like, you're not gonna, well, I don't know, maybe you could, but you wouldn't pitch to your, the nurses or the staff at the VA to, do an hour-long, crowdcast every single morning. But I suppose you could. This idea that one-on-one training is the best, right? Like, if you can get a subject matter expert connected with a learner, somebody that needs to know something, that's like the best solution overall, right? You just connect them, they talk, they connect, they communicate. Having that connection with each other is fantastic. That subject matter expert, sharing documentation or experiences with the person learning, the learner asking important questions that, and just that conversation and that connection does so much for the learning process. But I've always said that doesn't scale. And I'm starting to change that in my thinking, because now with technologies like Crowdcast and others, we can scale that subject matter expert up so that they can share what they know with more than just one person in a one-on-one situation. And that's to me the real change in our industry that I think we don't accept or promote as often as we should. And I think a lot of people feel threatened by that. I'll just come right out and say it. You know, there's a lot of folks, trainers that are in our industry that feel like, well, if that's possible, then we're not necessary. And I certainly don't think that's the case, but I know people are out there feeling that. Anybody here feeling that? Do you feel like that at all, Urbie?
Well, yeah, only because I think I'm in the wrong job. You know, because what I want to do is perfect. You know what? I'm actually going to submit the paperwork later today. I want to start the pre-teacher school over at Rio Salado.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I think I want to do after I retire in the next few minutes. You know, is become a teacher, and you know, I think 3rd grade. They said I could, with my skills, my math skills being what they are, I can teach up to 3rd grade. Yeah.
Well, that's pre-teaching.
Yeah.
You're probably 1 grade ahead of me.
You know, I'll tell you, honestly, one thing that's on my mind a lot is, when does pedagogy give way to andragogy? You know, because when I started learning with the teachers again at the ed camps, it became like apparent right away that the problems that they were seeing in kids, you know, or in the teacher's own professional development, was a lot of where we were at in L&D, you know,
yeah.
Engagement, you know, how to make it real, you know, sage on the stage. You know, when I went to school from 1960 to 1974, it was almost all sage on the stage, you know, and anymore, you know, movements like Make, Flipped, you know, Kids Matter, all that stuff. It's about making the learning visible, actually doing something with it.
Yeah.
You know, I know when I was at Intel, you know, as a project manager, program manager there, I learned about this guy, Dave Meyer. If you go to alcenter.com, you can learn about this guy. But he introduced this topic to me about learning as feeding chickens. So my Uncle Juan, you know, he had chickens. So every once in a while, well, I would help him, right? But you dip your hand in the feed bag and toss it on the ground, and the chickens would peck, right, like crazy, you know. And so much of learning was like that. You know, read this, take this checkpoint, read this, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
So is that really learning, or is it more remembering?
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Right. Well, I think we're all at that point, and I think schools are finally getting to that point where they need more project-based activities and learning and whatnot. And I know they exist. I know schools like that exist. I know there's lots of experimenting going on. I know they're trying, but it's really, really hard, like any big giant bureaucracy, trying to get those things approved and getting money for all of the supplies that it takes and all that kind of stuff. It always ends up.
But see, that's where the fun starts, actually. When I was at Intel, that's where I've had probably my most career success in such a short time was at Intel. I swear our work chairs should come with seat belts, you know. Yeah, because in a way it was sort of kind of like the military, in that if you saw a problem or an opportunity to fix something, okay, you fixed it if you could, or you connected, you know, with the people that could fix it, and then you'd see it through to completion.
Right.
Okay? Yeah. So with respect to training and learning and development and stuff, is let's make the learning experience look like that. You know, anymore, again, I work hand in hand with the SMEs, and then it's kind of a curious thing, but they end up doing most of the work.
Yeah.
So they do the brainstorming, the ideation, you know, using some real cheap or free tools on my iPad. You know, I pass it around, or they use it on their iPhones. We prototype like crazy. You know, there's this really cool app called Plotagon, where you pick these goofy scenes, you can make your own characters, you type, and then it does this text-to-speech kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. You know, you design a course, you know, from idea to prototype to something you would hand off over the wall to the developers in like an hour.
Yeah, that's super nice. Hey, can you type that into the chat? The name of that particular iPad app? That would be pretty cool to have locked and loaded in there. And also there was a couple questions that got thrown into the Q&A that I'm going to ask you real quick, and maybe we'll just do sort of a lightning round on this. Kara asks, you say you don't use Storyline. What are some tools you currently use to make e-learning?
Well, that's a really cool thing. You know, I use tools like, I guess what you do is maybe it's micro learning and maybe it's just activities, but I use apps like Explain Everything.
Yeah.
You put the information right there. It's interactive. Click, you know, whatever, to go off and do that. Oh, by the way, these are things that you're not going to find tied to an LMS, or if they are tied to an LMS, somebody else did the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
You know? And I guess it's just the micro learning, the activities that I do. There's this really amazing app called ThingLink. I think it's free. Okay. And the thing I love about ThingLink is it supports 360 and virtual reality stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. Free.
Yep.
Yeah, and then the user committee or community is, you know, numbers in the tens of thousands, so it's really easy to get help. Other apps that I use, there's this one called Holoplex. It's actually 2 words. The only one I can make out is Holoplex. And you think about, again, about virtual reality. You know that thing in Star Wars, the very first one? Okay, maybe not the first one. The one that came out in 1977. I think it's actually number 4, right? You know, you remember that part where R2-D2 projects Princess Leia?
Oh, yeah, the hologram.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a free app where with that and 2 sheets of, remember back when they used to have overhead projectors? And 2 sheets of that. I mean, everybody's, if you're in an office in a cabinet somewhere, there's some old ones, right? Yeah, so with that app and those things, you can do that effect. And there you are with your camera making something, you know, engagement, you know, whatever you want to talk about. There's this one, oh gosh, this app. It's called Green Screen. If it's $5, I'll be surprised. $4.99, right? But with Green Screen, what you can do, you know, you capture stills or video, right? And then you can layer, I think it's up to like 2 channels, and do green screen effects. Kids in kindergarten, I swear I've seen use this tool.
Dang.
You know? Yeah, and so you think about this. If you have an audience, right? Let's say there's like 10 people in the audience. I mean, you'd be crazy to develop an e-learning solution because you're going to spend way more money than you ever get an ROI, right?
Yeah.
But what if where you spent your calories was in getting with that team of people and saying, this is how you can produce your own training using apps you already have, right? And then your LMS, it just has to support the ability to be able to go in and say, I had some external training from this subject matter expert or this instructor, and then have a way of tracking that.
Yeah, so this is the really fun part about all of the new platforms that are out there that can actually do that.
Yeah, and there was just one, it's called TC Studio. I think the teacher version, I think it's free. It might be a little bit of money, but anyway, what it is you think about a movie studio, you know, backgrounds, green screen, these little applets that let you do all kinds of interactivity, like put the weather charts in back that are clickable. You can do that on your iPhone. All you need is a tripod, a steady device, you know, to hold it, and you can do that. Anybody can do that. You know,
so this is great, and Mark jumps in and adds what I was just going to say too, right? I think the biggest problem currently, and this is the big transition that we're going through, is that we're shifting from e-learning and SCORM courses to digital learning and just digital content, and we need to be able to just create very simple educational content in tools like these, which are fantastic. Thanks for sharing, and you guys, thanks for popping it into the chat too. These links are super helpful. But you know, being able to create digital content and to be able to you know, put them up somewhere, people obviously at some point are going to say, well, then how do we track it, right? That always comes up, but that's why we have XAPI, and XAPI can be added, or you can use tools to do assessments, and maybe what you're using these other tools for is to just create the content. Then you use other tools for the assessment and the tracking and the XAPI. But you're right. I mean, I think the key point here is that it's possible to create instructional content in this new digital era without having to use quote unquote e-learning content or authoring tools.
You talk about assessment, and again, I've never used the XAPI. I have no idea. I have some idea what it does, but I've never used it. But once upon a time when we needed to develop training, there was a gap. Remember from a while ago, there was a gap, some performance gap, something that wasn't being done or met, right? And so now you can actually go and identify that metric. You put out the training, and you can look at whatever Excel spreadsheet or report or whatever that was, and did that change sometime after the training?
Yep.
That's
right. Well, that's what we want to measure, right? We want to measure the performance, right? We want to sort of get away from the measurement of did they consume the knowledge and did they learn something? That's important. Sure, maybe we should know that because, in all honesty, I'll do a quick tangent here. I always find that the most learning occurs in the testing. At least that's the way it always was for me, right? You can learn as much as you can when you're consuming the content, but there are those moments where you're not really sure what you're supposed to be learning when you're doing all this stuff until you get to the test. And then they ask all the questions and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was what I was supposed to learn. And so, that to me is because that's where a lot of the thinking occurs. So if we can embed the questioning and sort of the testing and the quizzing into the content world, into the consumption side, then all we have to do is track performance and see if that knowledge actually shifted their performance in any way. And that is where the real value is, especially in the corporate space.
Yep. Yeah. There's this guy that I met at the ATD conference in Atlanta the other day. You probably know him. I can remember off, not having his name in front of me is he's Greek. You know him?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Anyway, his session was on The Walking Dead.
Now, why can't I think of?
I think he's even got it on YouTube too. But the takeaways, the things that I remember about it. Oh yeah, Enzo Silva.
Oh, Enzo. Yeah, I was just gonna say he's not Greek, but he's
Portuguese. Portuguese.
Brazilian.
It says on his Instagram it says Portuguese. But,
Portuguese. Anyway, yeah, okay.
Anyway, though, as he was saying, there's so much that can be taken away from watching a program about zombies, that can help us be better instructional designers, and I guess you'd have to actually I'd have to look at my show notes and stuff to pick it up. But, the adults, again, it goes back to andragogy and pedagogy. We know so much at any given point in our lives, and yet so much of the stuff that we develop as training, it neglects all that.
Yeah. I mean, there's all of that easy stuff and not so easy stuff.
Yep.
For sure. Okay, so here's another quick question. Let me throw at you. It's from the chat. How often do you get to see the learners at work before designing the training?
Almost all the time. Yeah, if not so much anymore, but there was a period of time last year where when I would meet with the SMEs, I'd take pictures, usually 360 pictures with my Ricoh camera of the space, the space being the room where examinations were held or something.
Yep.
And to look at my feed back then, you would think, man, Urbie's really sick, But again, I would be immersing myself in my learning experience working with the SMEs and stuff. So I get to do observations, see what it's like. When I first learned about design thinking, there was this one story that you hear told a lot about the little kid, 3 or 4 years old, that needs to get a CAT scan, except they were really afraid, crying about going into the machine. But somebody, I don't know, I think it might have been at IDEO, experimented with, let's paint it like, it's some kid's playland or fantasy, and then the kid wants to go into the machine.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, and so that's where we need to go.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that leads us right into another piece of this conversation, right? How do you get people to want to consume your training? How do you get people to want to learn from the content you create?
Okay, so my belief, and again, I'm going to make a lot of people mad at this point, but we like to say that we're evidence-based, right? Somebody's out there doing research that tells us this has a high probability of working for your particular application. Okay, and that's great. Okay, but I think more and more what we should really do is we should be able to suspend our disbelief that something that we heard, something that clicked for us on the metro, riding into work, or the bus, or wherever you're in your shower, and then we should be able to share that with other people and say, this really grabbed me. Let's find out why and see how we can use it. And to throw it in a learning situation. Yeah, so evidence-based is really, really good, but we need to kind of tune our disbelief thing.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think this is where the new capabilities of enterprise grade learning systems are shining very strongly in giving people that ability to share those types of thoughts, right? Immediately with your community of professionals and workers. You're on the bus, right? Or you're going into work, and all of a sudden, because you never really know when inspiration strikes. Maybe you had a problem at work the last few weeks. Everybody in the office is trying to solve it. Maybe just by being on the bus and seeing something out the window or something triggers a really great idea, but you don't want to lose that idea. And the element of time is important. And so you don't want to spend 6 months creating a course. You just want to share that information with everybody, right? Or that idea. It might even be a bad idea, but at least you need to get it out there, right? And tell everyone. So if you had that app on your phone that you knew everybody was connected to, and you could live stream on the app, or you could just snap a picture of whatever you saw, or you could just type something, or whatever, just share the way we do with commercial products, but be able to do it in an enterprise way with that peer group. Now all of a sudden you're talking about very strong social collaboration and learning that can occur in that space, right?
Can you guys see this?
Looks like a donut.
This guy named Sam, I was at one of his sessions at ATD. See, it's his light.
Oh yeah,
it's got
one of those.
Yeah. So when I learned about it at that ATD session, I'm like, what? It's my kid uses something like this for makeup, applying makeup. Right? There's no way this could possibly have an application in broadcast and video e-learning. And so I dropped the $12, and this is after I asked my kid to borrow a little makeup thing, right? You know what? It works.
Yeah.
I had to suspend my disbelief, first to
right?
give the idea a chance.
What was great is along the same lines. I was staying in the Hyatt, and in my bathroom, they sometimes have those makeup lights mounted on the wall, the circular ones. And it's got a ring light around it. And I was using it to shave. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is why these ring lights are so awesome. Because it lights up everything. And then the lighting around the mirror in the bathroom made everything look so clear and so bright. I was like, wow, I should just broadcast. If I was doing TLDC right now, I should just bring the camera in here and set it all up and use this great lighting in this bathroom. But that would look weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it struck me as funny. I mean, it's all the same kind of LED lighting that's being used today. So yeah, quick tangent. We should probably save the donut light. Maybe we should start calling it now for Video Friday. But always good tips and tricks pop up out of nowhere, seemingly on TLDChat. So it's always good. But yeah, I mean, it would be. It's sort of that serendipitous learning and the serendipitous idea generation and sharing that leads to some of the best learning and collaboration and ideas, especially when you can utilize the technology to share that back and forth. And if that one idea triggered a conversation, right, then you can, and now you're learning. Now you're both learning together. which is really the part that's so powerful, and that I get so excited about when I see applications that can allow us to do that. But it's a very different paradigm than what we're used to. So we can take this back full circle to the beginning of the conversation, and again ask the question again about subject matter experts. How do you get subject matter experts to do this? How do you get them to engage in this type of collaborative sharing and being that instructor, right? And is it a culture change? Is it a massive culture change? What is it?
This is my 4K camera.
It's your drone.
Yeah, I have to add a tripod attachment for when I don't fly it, you know. But the other day, again, storytelling is really big with me. So the other day, I'm with some doctors, and I said, if you took away the audio, what would the learning experience be like? And I showed them some video clips that I shot of me, you know, flying over, I think it was an old smokestack or something. And I said, you know, when I record with my drone, I don't pick up any audio because all you'd get is a whir of the propeller.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so if this was your course, what would we have to do? And so again, we put it back in. What's it like? What's the experience like for your learners? Again, empathy, design thinking and stuff. What can we do to spruce it up? And then the other thing is the stuff that I do is mostly transformational. Okay. If you're a patient, if you're sick, you go to see your doctor, where would you rather have your doctor be? Would you rather have him there or her there with you in the space that you're in? Or would you rather have them in a classroom someplace learning how to be better at what they do? You know, and so the training that I developed for the most part is like 5 or 6 minutes long. You know, apart from the webinar, you know, the webinar pieces, those are a lot longer. You know, but the whole idea again is with the SME is to make them feel like they're not a SME anymore, that they're, you know, Joe Learner, and then what's that experience like for them, and then going from there. That really helps out. If you can do that, if you can make them, you know, wear the shoes or wear the head of the learner, you're 99% of the way there.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's building the empathy piece, right? Even if it's just in storytelling, and that's aside from the technology you use to deploy it, right? I mean, I think that is, you know, that is what we're all trying to get towards, right? The ultimate design is where it doesn't matter what type of tech you use. If you can build into your solution empathy and experience in, you know, walking in the learner's shoes, that does build a sense of learning and caring well beyond any sort of you know, factual based, you know, memorizing of terms and descriptions and definitions and things like that, right?
Yep.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Hey, we're coming up close to the end of the hour. I'm all out of questions in the question box. Craig, Kara, Sam, everybody that's in there, Mark and Zoltz and Nog, everyone. Are there any questions that I missed that you could cut and paste in real quick that we should be hammering on? I think this question of, well, I mean, it's not necessarily just a question, but the conversation in general of working with subject matter experts. It's interesting how when we have this conversation, it always circles back around to design. This is something that I find very interesting when we talk about subject matter experts and how do we deal with them. A lot of times it does circle back to how do we actually do the work that we do and how do we design the work that we do, because we use subject matter experts. But getting a better understanding of how we can enable and facilitate the teaching and the instruction and the sharing directly from a subject matter expert isn't always our knee-jerk response to these conversations. And I think it needs to be, because that's where we're headed.
You know, I was looking for a picture. I was at an iPad Palooza conference in Austin in 2015. And I take my iPad with me everywhere, right? So I had a Kindle book that the guy wrote, Austin Kleon. He's the author.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I handed him the cover on the ebook, a screen capture of the book, and he, in paper, right? And so I expected him. I had him my Apple Pencil, right? So I expected him to get the pen tool and sign it. No. Instead, what he did, and then I'm like, no, don't do that. It's the wrong tool. Because I'm telling Austin Kleon this, right? He totally ignored me, and he went for the fill tool, right? And sure, he could have done an autograph, but instead he drew a picture.
Oh, no way.
Using just the fill tool. And I'm like, in awe, Yeah, and so the other thing with SMEs is you want to let them speak in their own language, using their own way of speaking. And if it's in the fill tool in paper, whatever, right? And I couldn't find the picture though. It was a really cool autograph that he did, and it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. I was in awe of this guy. I mean, I don't think.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. Very, very cool guy. Yeah, Sam just throws in Sam drops always the smart bombs right at the last minute when I have to sign off. But dang it, we need to be able to talk about this one. He says, no question. But my big tip to add is to always start with writing the assessment. This helps define scope and focus the SMEs on what is most important, not sharing all that they know, but rather all that the learners must retain. And it's a fantastic way to put it. And it's interesting that that is how I was classically trained in academia when I was in graduate school. That's what all of the instructors told us to do, right? And then it became popular. And now we there's the statement of begin with the end in mind is a really popular saying. But we were always taught from the beginning to start with the assessment. Start with how are you, what are the questions you're going to be asking them in the multiple choice test, right? When you test them, when you assess their knowledge, what exactly is that? Once you've got that defined, everything else is a piece of cake. I mean, figuring out what content needs to be in the course and all of that becomes the it almost becomes kind of a moot point because it kind of takes care of itself so easily. So yeah, I totally agree. Getting that assessment right is, that's 90% of the battle. Then it becomes, okay, what's the most efficient and effective way to get people the knowledge they need to answer those questions correctly and to apply them, right? And to build that empathy in transferring that knowledge and those questions, if you will, to the real world. So it's a
world. I have to drop off. I see from the time that I have some people coming for a video shoot.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, hey, good luck. Tell us how it goes. Do some behind the scenes shots and share them on Facebook for us.
Yeah, I'll see you. Bye.
All right, man. Take care. Perfect timing. That was Urbie Delgado. For those of you that don't know Urbie, he's in our chat all the time. I don't think I've actually chatted with Urbie and invited him into the video in a long time. So it's good to have Urbie hanging out with us today. If you don't know Urbie, and you should get to know him. Absolutely, very, very cool guy, very active in our industry, and it does a lot of very cool stuff. Excellent examples of subject matter expert stuff. So again, such a broad topic. It's what I don't think we talk about it enough. And I think it's the type of topic that we need to get a little bit more comfortable with, knowing and understanding that our world is changing. Our learners' world is changing. The workplace learning is changing. Just work in general is changing, and understanding how we facilitate the learning and the teaching and instructing more so than creating it ourselves these days is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If you still think that you are going to be the primary creator of digital learning content, I'm here to tell you that is shifting and going away. And we all need to get a little bit more comfortable with letting go of that piece. And even if the content that's being created by subject matter experts isn't exactly the way we would do it, it's good content for someone, right? It may not be the type of content that you want to put your name on as the creator, but if a subject matter expert is scaling up his knowledge and sharing it either via text, images, both, video, audio, in whatever way they feel comfortable in capturing what's in the noggin and sharing that digitally with their peers, what we have to think about it doesn't matter. Right? We can improve on it, we can learn from it, and we can use our skills as instructional designers to make the consumption of that content better. Absolutely. But first, we need to even see if it's necessary. It may be good enough as it is, and it may be exactly what somebody needed at just the right time, in just the right format that they wanted and what they were looking for, not what we thought they needed and what we thought they were looking for. It's a very important distinction. And I think these conversations are the ones that we need to be having a lot more of as we start to go through this. So might be mildly controversial to be saying these things, but I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Yes, Toddy, peer-to-peer learning. Absolutely. And just because peer-to-peer learning is an important facet of what exists in the workplace, in the new 21st century workplace, it doesn't mean that we're not necessary anymore. That's the main point I'd like to hit on. It's that we can utilize that, right? We should have been encouraging peer-to-peer learning all this time, all along. We should be, should have been encouraging that. But like I said, in the early days, didn't feel to me like that would scale up, right? Peer-to-peer is often one-to-one, right? Subject matter expert or a person that has the knowledge sharing it with the person that needs the knowledge. But the technology today allows us to scale up our knowledge, allows us to scale up our ability to share what we know, even the immediacy with mobile tools, right? If you think about it, we are each individual person, and this was very trendy like 10 years ago. Everybody is a personal brand, right? It's gone beyond that today with the technology. Everybody has a personal brand, and everybody should have been branding themselves. And in fact, we have been ever since the invention of the resume, right? We define ourselves, and each of us has our own unique identity, and that's our brand in who we are. But nowadays, we are all also our own individual media companies. And understanding that and seeing how our personal brand can be scaled up through our own personal digital media broadcast capabilities and abilities to share who we are and what we know is huge. And so us as instructional designers being able to engage that philosophy, help subject matter experts, the ones that bubble up from the top, not the ones that are SMEs because of a hierarchy of some sort, but the ones that truly are the people that learners are going to, and you've identified that, being able to highlight that person and facilitate their ability to share what they know makes you look good as a training department, right? Make your subject matter experts the rock stars, not you, not the training department. But if you can help those who you are already using to build what you build, help them build their personal brand through their own personal media production platform and business. Now you're talking being able to facilitate and actually providing significant value to the business. When all of those subject matter experts are doing that effectively, and you become basically the puppet master of the subject matter experts as they're creating content, as they're sharing, as they're live streaming, as they're doing all of the things that they're doing anyways, right? But it's not digitally captured and it's not scaled up. this is where we add value in the 21st century. So, Tom, you got to run. We all got to run. It's 9 o'clock, and I should be saying goodbye. But just had to go off on that rant. It's been a deep thinking kind of weekend, so I just needed to get that off my chest. So I appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate everybody adding their tips and tricks and thoughts on subject matter experts. It's a fantastic topic that I think we should continue talking about. And I'd love to hear tips and ideas and things that you're doing to help scale up the knowledge of your subject matter experts. And we can talk about it some more. But it's been a great day. Thanks, everybody. We've got a great week planned ahead. Lots and lots and lots of guests. Last week, we were going to have Patty Schenk on Wednesday, but since I wasn't going to be there, I really wanted to be the one to chat with Patty because I haven't talked to her in a long time. So I asked if she would push out till this Wednesday. And so we'll be talking to Patty this Wednesday and a bunch of other great guests. So be sure to join us as a member here on TLDC, and don't forget to get registered and set up for the TLDC 18 event at tldc18.com. Get hooked up for that. It's going to be a good one. So we'll talk to you all later. Everybody have a great week. Thanks for hanging out today. Oops.